this here. Tell me some of the things that people say about HIV. Anything, just what pops into your mind. When you see HIV, what do you think? Yes? So it's a virus. Okay? Human immunodeficiency viruses. Okay? Yes? Has nothing to do with you. Great. Anything else? Yes. No cure. Yes? Source of calamity. Nothing else? What do people say about HIV? It causes death. Yes? Pain. Anyone else? Hinders development. Yes? It affects, sorry? I'm not hearing you, I'm sorry.
Affects economy.
Economy, okay, sorry, thank you. Are you talking about individually or country or which economy? Okay, yes, anything else? Yes. No cure. Yes, no cure. Yes.
Some people relate HIV
with a curse. Yes. Who's doing the cursing? We're in church, you can say the name. No? God. Okay, God's curse. Segregation. Mm-hmm. So, lots that is being said about HIV, and not a lot of it positive. Right? Right? Yes. Yeah. So, that's problematic. So, I'm going to ask you just to work with me for a moment. I'm going to ask you 10 questions. You've got 10 fingers, I'm going to ask you 10 questions. But because the questions I'm going to ask you might be construed to be a bit embarrassing, I'm going to ask you to sit on your hands, or to hide your hands. If you don't want to sit on them, you can just hide them, because I'm going to ask you to count on your fingers. Okay? So, just to give a dry run, if I say to you, did you have breakfast this morning? If you had breakfast, put out one finger. You don't have to show me your finger, you can hide it. Huh? You're not see my finger, but it's there. Huh? And the second question is, did you have lunch? If you just had lunch, that would be finger number 2. If you haven't, then you don't put out a finger. Got it? You sure? Yes. Okay. First question. Have you ever had sex? I told you a very embarrassing question. That's why I told you to hide your fingers. Huh? Yeah. Let me tell you about sex in this regard. I was meeting about 8 years ago down in the southern part of Tanzania with a group of 40 bishops. They were from the Lutheran Church and the Methodist Church and the Anglican Church. And so I said to them, bishops, how many of you are married? All 40 put up their hands. And then I said to them, and how many of you have children? And they all kept up their hands. And then I said, and how many of you have had sex? So, lots of immaculate conception happening in Tanzania. So, first question is, have you ever had sex? My second question to you is, have you ever had an injection? Huh? It might be for a vaccination. It might be because someone was working on your teeth and they had to give you an injection to your jaw for the pain. Have you ever had an injection? Question number 3. Have you ever had an operation? So maybe you broke your leg and they needed to go in and have it fixed. Maybe, like me, you've had an appendix removed. That's an operation, or your tonsils. Have you ever had an operation? Question number 4. Have you ever had a blood transfusion? Now, blood transfusion, some people have because they bleed naturally, so they need blood, like a hemophiliac, or maybe leukemia, or because you've been in an operation, you lost blood and they have to give you extra blood. Have you ever had a blood transfusion? Question number 5. Are you married? I'm going to extend that just slightly. Are you married or are you in a permanent relationship with benefits? Are you married? Huh? Question number 5. Question number 6. Do you have children? Huh? Do you have children? And if your children are by adoption, don't worry too much about that. Do you have your own natural children? Why do I ask the question? My doctor always used to say, pregnancy is the best proof of unprotected sex. Yes? Well, that was question number 6. Question number 7 is, do you have a sexually transmitted infection? Have you ever had a sexually transmitted infection? These are things like gonorrhea or syphilis, any one of these, anal or vaginal warts. Have you ever had a sexually transmitted infection? Question number 9 is, have you ever been away from your regular sexual partner for 2 or more weeks at a time? Now you're asking, what am I asking this question for? Well, if you skip breakfast and you skip lunch, you usually don't mind where you get dinner. Question number 10. Are you human? That's a crazy question. Well, let me tell you, when it comes to HIV, then if you're a grasshopper, you're fine. If you're a frog, you can leap away. But this is the human immunodeficiency virus. So your first level of vulnerability to HIV is the fact that you are human. So now, you don't have to tell me what your answers were that were correct, yes or no, but let me know. Are there any people here who got 5 yeses or more? 5 yeses or more? 4 yeses or more? 3, 2? Well, let me tell you. If you have 1 yes, and that was because you're human, don't worry too much. But if you have 2 or 3 or 4 or more, then my question to you is, have you ever been tested for HIV? Because all the questions I have asked relate to ways in which HIV not only can, but is transmitted. You thought marriage was safe? Let me tell you that 47% of all HIV transmissions happen within marriage. 47%. So if you thought marriage was safe, sorry, it's not so safe. In fact, amongst all behaviors, it's the most risky. Because we have the highest degree of HIV transmission in marriage than anything else. So, please, if you haven't been tested, and the only thing you walk away from this time that we have together with, then please, go and get yourself tested. Know your HIV status. If you're HIV positive, there's a lot of information we can give you to live positive. If you're HIV negative, then we can give you information to stay that way. If you are HIV ignorant, then you're a danger to yourself and those you love. So go and get tested. Right. So, are you feeling a little less comfortable? A little less comfortable? Good. I'm happy. So let me tell you that we are dealing with a human immunodeficiency virus. And the one thing I can tell you for sure is that HIV runs along the fault lines of our discrimination and our marginalization. So if you are looking for the communities or people with the highest risk factors in terms of HIV, they are usually the ones that in some way or form we push to the sides. Also, stigma is a major contributory factor from keeping people from doing what is right in terms of HIV transmission. Do any of you know any prevention strategy? Have you heard of an HIV prevention strategy? Silence is a very bad answer now. Have you heard of any HIV prevention strategy? Yes? Yes? Tell me one. Have any of you heard of the ABC approach? Aha! So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a prevention strategy. So let me just put that down for you. A, B, and C. Right? Does that look right? Oh. C is what? No, there is the C. A stands for abstinence, great. B stands for? And C stands for? Aha. Now you see why the C is so small, because we don't like to talk about that one very much. So A is for abstinence because that's the one that the church likes the most, right? Yes? Okay. Abstain from what? Sorry? Sorry? Abstain from hospitals, is that right? No? Abstain from? Sex. Aha. Can we say it together? Abstain from? Sex. Oh, I can't hear you. Abstain from? Sex. Oh, you see, and the riff is still there. Imagine that. Abstain from sex. B is for? Be faithful. Oh, be faithful. From? Be faithful in? Relationships. So that's be faithful when you're eating together. No? No? Be faithful to one partner. So that one partner you have to use just one key for the door. Huh? Be faithful in sex. Huh? You don't worry where your partner eats, but you want to know who they sleep with, right? Actually, you don't worry about where they're sleeping with. It's not sleep that's the problem, it's staying away. So, be faithful in sex. That's the thing. Huh? And use a condom for? Yeah, you're getting it now. And look at that. The HIV prevention strategy we have has told us that HIV is all about sex. And this is the way in which prevention strategies that we use can fuel the stigma around HIV. So when you hear someone is HIV positive, the first thing that leaps into your mind is sex. And usually it's not, oh, I'm sure they got it in marriage, sex, is it? It's, oh, I'm sure they got it somewhere else, sex. And so we've immediately linked HIV with immorality. Remember we wrote up there, God's curse? So the messages we give people about HIV can very frequently cause the stigma that drives people away from doing the right thing. Then we need to look a little bit about some of these vulnerabilities. So I'm going to give you just one example, okay? Just one example. There are so many, but I don't have a lot of time today. So here we have men, and here we have women. So, can the men here, now I'm not asking a woman to answer a question, I'm asking the men here. Can you tell me what it is consciously, every day, that you do to prevent sexual and gender-based violence from happening to yourself? The men. Silence. Any other responses? Okay, then can I ask the woman here, what is it that you do on a daily basis to prevent sexual and gender-based violence? What do you do on a daily basis consciously to prevent sexual and gender-based violence from happening to yourself? Yes?
Being sure of the environment where I live.
You've been sure of the environment. Tell me a little bit about that. So, what do you mean?
There are some places I know that they are not safe for me.
Aha! So there are places that are not safe. What else? Any other woman? You're taking care of yourself. So you. And that might mean that you don't walk in some places alone, right? And you, so nothing hindering So you're not using drugs or alcohol or something like that that might blur your senses. Okay? Any of the other women? Yes?
Keeping busy with different works.
Keeping busy.
I may not think much on things.
Yeah, so keep your mind occupied. Anything else? Dressing modestly? Yes? No? Oh, yes, absolutely. Why? Because we don't want to attract the attention of men who might want to take advantage of us. Anything else? Okay. This looks a bit different on the men's side and the woman's side, doesn't it? Huh? What's that about? So, yes. Yeah, so for men, I wouldn't say that there has never been a case of sexual or gender-based violence against men or a man, but I would say that the vast majority of people who experience sexual and gender-based violence are women. What's more is that 90% of that sexual or gender-based violence, 90% of all rape happens within the family home, either by a relative or a close friend. 90% is perpetuated right there in the zone in which you feel most safe. But it's a reality that women live with on a daily basis. And on a daily basis, you're trying to make decisions that will mean that you stay safe from sexual and gender-based violence. Not only do 90% of rape cases or cases of sexual and gender-based violence happen within the home, but most of them go unreported. And of those that are reported, the vast majority, if they ever go to trial, are not found guilty. And so there's a massive difference in vulnerability here. Now let me tell you something else. In sexual and gender-based violence cases, for instance, when a woman is being raped, you don't say, "Sorry, would you mind using a condom?" Huh? It's not going to happen, is it? Because rape is not about sex, it's about power. And it's about power imbalance and power abuse. So what this represents to us is the vulnerability that is created when men and women have unequal power or unequal opportunity to negotiate safety. So when we don't see gender as something that is equal, we create vulnerability. Do you get that? So gender is one of the factors that we know leads to a higher risk profile for women than for men. In Tanzania, you say that 67% of people living with HIV are women. So the number of men living with HIV is much smaller. There's a much higher risk profile amongst women than amongst men because of a gender imbalance. So, where does this gender imbalance come from? Can we have a look at a passage maybe like Genesis chapter 2? What does Genesis chapter 2 say to us? It's the second of the creation stories in the Bible. And in this creation story, we have Adam and Eve. and we have the rib. Does that all sound about right? Yes? No? Hello? Does that sound right? Yeah. Okay. So, Adam is created first, second. So Adam is created first. And second we have, so Eve is created second. And what does that mean in terms of hierarchy of creation? Nothing. Anyone else? What I've heard taught before is that because Adam was created first and Eve was created from Adam's rib, Adam is more important than Eve, and Eve must be Adam's heartland. Have you heard that? You've heard that? Does that sound about right? No. And you know that's a very interesting thing you say, because for instance, that word helper is used so frequently when it describes what God does for us. God is our helper, but we don't see God as less important, do we? No. But what happens if this is all wrong? What happens if Adam is in fact not a man? Yes? Adam? What, sorry?
Do you mean that Adam is not a man?
Well, because the name Adam never occurs in the Hebrew text. It never occurs. What occurs is Ad-am. And Ad-am refers to the one who is created from Ad-amma. Ad-amma is the ground, and Ad-am is the one created from the ground. In Hebrew, Ad-amma is gender feminine, and Ad-am is which gender? Gender neutral. So in fact, if we go to the Hebrew, Adam is not a man. There's nothing masculine about Adam at all. We have Adam, which is gender neutral, created from Adamah. And then we are told that God took from Adam's what? The rib. Aha. The side. What's this? Rib side. Why do we have these two words? Which is it? Yes?
I think it's not that clear which is what means.
It's very clear, because there are two different words. The word for rib is Allah. Allah never occurs in Genesis chapter 2. And yet that is the word for rib that we see many times used in the Hebrew Bible. The word for side is the word tsela. Tsela is also used in other times, but it's used always, interpreted always as side. So mountain side, hillside, the side of your body, that's side. So the Hebrew tells us that God created the genderless one from the ground feminine, and then from the side, God takes the other one. And that is the first time that you have mention of male and female in that passage. So that they are created absolutely equal. No hierarchy. No hierarchy. And in fact, in Genesis chapter 1, we get it back exactly the same. In Genesis chapter 1, we have in the 6th day, and God created them. Male and female, God created them. In the image and likeness of God, God created them. So there is an equality in both of the Genesis creation stories. You all looking very perplexed at me. All I'm trying to show you here is that very frequently what we use as biblical justification for inequality between the genders is actually a mistranslation. There's a book by an author, Dr. Renato Lings. And Dr. Renato Lings says that one of the great problems is that the Bible is written in Hebrew, and in the 1st century BC, the Bible is translated for the Hebrew community in Alexandria because they have lost touch with their Hebrew and they are now Greek-speaking. So it is translated from the Hebrew to the Greek in the Septuagint. And the Septuagint is used as the base material when we have the composition of the canon of Scripture. And so from the Septuagint, we translate it into the Latin. The Vulgate Bible. And the Latin is most commonly used for the translation into other languages. So that by the time we get to the English version of the Bible, we're 4 languages away from the original. And the problem is that English, as an example, is not a gendered language. So we don't have the ability to represent gender-neutral words, gender-feminine words, gender-masculine words. There are exceptions in this process. For instance, when the Bible was translated into German by Luther, he went back there. But that isn't usually the source of our modern translations. So we really do have to be able to go back and have a look at what the original says. What does that have to do with HIV? Well, our societal or cultural norms very frequently dictate the way in which we can or can't respond to situations. So, if women have less say than men in terms of safe sex, who they choose to marry or who they don't choose to marry, where they will live or whether they get married or not, all of these things are things that inequality will take away from people in terms of their ability to negotiate their own safety. And that, by definition, means a higher vulnerability to HIV. So in Tanzania, it's estimated that 4.7% of the population are living with HIV. But there are groups of people in Tanzania that we cannot speak about because they are sitting on the margins of society. And if you look at those groups of people, you're looking at a much higher HIV prevalence. For instance, men who have sex with men have an HIV prevalence estimated at 25%. Female sex workers have an HIV prevalence estimated at 26%. And people who inject drugs have an HIV prevalence estimated at 36%. Very different. But in terms of vulnerability, it's very clear. When we push people to the margins of society, that's what happens. And part of what happens is that people don't have access to the services they need to protect themselves. So, I've spoken now, it's 4:30. I was told that this is the point that I should stop speaking and open the floor for you for any questions. Anything that you want to ask, anything that you have questions of clarification about, maybe you want to ask questions more about HIV. Maybe you want to ask questions about what does a person living with HIV look like, how can we identify who they are, who is it that we should be scared of, all of these things. What are the questions that you have for me that I can help you with? Anyone? Yes.
What do you mean when you say women and men are equal? What is equal?
What is equal? Equal means that you have the ability and authority and power to be able to enter a negotiation on an equal footing. So, if you are going to be driving from here to Dar es Salaam, and you are married, and your wife says, today I want to drive, and you say, no, I want to drive. And she says, but I really feel like driving, and you say, I'm the man of the house. That doesn't give you an equal footing. Maybe you're very tired, and she feels that because she had a good night's sleep, it would be best for her to drive. But because there isn't an equal footing, that's not equality. Other questions? You can challenge me. You don't have to keep quiet. You can challenge me. You can tell me I'm talking rubbish. It's okay. Other questions? Comments? You're looking perplexed. No, you're not perplexed. Okay. Yes. Sorry. I'll get rid of it. Yes.
Why would you think it's no cure?
Why does it have no cure? Okay. So, I think firstly, we just need to do a little bit of clarification here. Can I ask you in this room, who of you believe that you can get AIDS from sex? Yes? Please put up your hands if you believe you can get AIDS from sex. Okay. So, how many of you have had sex, or is that not a question I'm allowed to ask? So if you've had sex, does that mean you had AIDS? No? Oh, no. Well, let me tell you, you can't get AIDS from sex. It's not possible. No, it doesn't depend. It's impossible. Take my word for it. It is impossible to get AIDS from sex. Because AIDS and HIV are not the same thing. Is this right? Yes. So, how do you get AIDS? Sorry? From HIV. Okay. But you can only get AIDS by having HIV and not treating it. If you treat it, you can't get AIDS. There's no automatic progression from HIV to AIDS. Today, we operate on the system that says test and treat. Because we know that if we treat someone who is living with HIV, they never have to develop AIDS. So the only way you can develop AIDS is by having HIV and not treating it. Now, number 2. Can you get HIV from sex? Are you sure? Remember, I asked trick questions. Are you sure? Yes? No? No? Yes? No? Well, I'll say, how many of you? No. So then we need to put a few more things in there. You can only get HIV by having unprotected sex with a person who is HIV positive, who has a viral load that is not suppressed. Why do I say all of that? Because HIV is a virus that is quite difficult to transmit, except through blood. With blood, it's very easy. But under all other circumstances, to transmit HIV is quite complicated. And it depends on the level of viruses in whatever fluid you're talking about. So we're talking about unprotected. Yes? What does that mean? What does unprotected mean? Anyone? What do you mean? The sea. Oh dear God, not the sea. Can we say the word? You see. So, unprotected means not using a barrier method or not using a condom. Either a male or a female condom. Second is with a person who is living with HIV. That's the second thing. So, if I have unprotected sex with a person who doesn't have HIV, does that mean I'm going to get HIV? No. So the second requirement is that the person I'm having unprotected sex with has to be living with HIV. And the third requirement is with a high viral load. Let me just ask you these questions in relation to that very quickly. High risk, low risk. Can you give me a body fluid and tell me whether it's high risk or low risk in terms of HIV transmission? Anyone? Blood. High risk or low risk? High risk. Sorry? Saliva. High risk or low risk? Low risk. Sorry? A body fluid. I'm looking for a body fluid. Vaginal fluid. High risk or low risk? Low risk. High risk. Low risk. Shall we vote? Who says it's high risk? 1, 2 people. Who says it's low risk? I'm sorry, you're wrong. It's high risk. Another body fluid. Sweat. High risk or low risk? Low risk. Another one. Tears. High risk or low risk? Low risk. Breast milk. High risk or low risk? High risk. Low. High. Low. High. Shall we vote? High risk. Low risk. It's high risk. Another one. Urine. High risk or low risk? Low. Low. One more. Sperm, no. There's no HIV in sperm. I'm serious, there's no HIV in sperm. You can get semen, and in the semen, you get sperm cells. You get HIV in the seminal fluid, but not in the sperm. In the same way as you get HIV in the vaginal fluid, but not in the egg cell. That means that every single child that is conceived, regardless of whether one or both parents are positive or neither, every child conceived is conceived without HIV. Every child. There is no HIV in sperm. So, the last body fluid is semen. High risk or low risk? High risk. What's the difference between the high risk and the low risk? It's the concentration of the virus. So the concentration of the virus is higher, much, much higher in the high risk body fluids and very low in the low risk body fluids. So when you take ARVs, then it can suppress the amount of virus in the high risk body fluids and move it to low risk. So this is why one of the things that we speak about today is U equals U. The new science says undetectable equals untransmittable. So if you are able to, through medication and your immune system, reduce the amount of virus in the blood to undetectable, that is less than 40 copies per milliliter of blood, then we say you are undetectable, and we would say it is not possible for HIV to be transmitted. That's why getting people tested and treated is one of the most important and successful prevention strategies as well. I've diverted slightly. You had a question.
Yes, I want to know how will it happen when many people are living with HIV and AIDS and one knows why they have sex together. And I want to know a little bit about ARVs and how long people who are using will they.
How long can you live with it? Yes. Okay. So your first question was a question related to how is it possible that you can have one person who is positive and the other person who is negative and they're married? How is that possible? And the second question is how long can you live with ARVs? Is that right? Okay. So let me say this to you. Oh, we're full of sperm. If we talk about discordant couples, so discordant couples are couples where one person is positive and the other person is negative, right? That's a discordant couple. So there are a number of things that can mean that you can live a married life without the person who is HIV negative being infected. The first thing that is important for that to happen is that the person who is HIV positive has to know that they're HIV positive. How do you do that? You have to test. If you don't test, you don't know. It's as simple as that. If you don't test, you don't know. Now let me give you an example. If I am working as a priest in Swaziland, if I'm working as a priest in Swaziland, then I'm working in an environment in which 40% of the adult population is living with HIV. In the age group of 15 to 24, the HIV prevalence is over 50%. So if two people come to me for marriage, and I don't speak about HIV, the only thing I'm guaranteeing is that I'm putting one or both of them at risk. You get that? Because we have to tell them, you have to know your HIV status. Now the reality is that with an HIV prevalence of 4.7% in Tanzania, in the group of 15 to 24, your HIV prevalence in many places is more than 15%. So again, HIV is something that you have to speak about when it comes to marriage counseling and marriage preparation. Because unless they know their HIV status, they're putting each other at risk. Remember I said HIV ignorance means that you put yourself and those you love at risk. So, I'm still answering my question. I promise you can ask me a question of clarification. And I do realize I haven't answered your question fully, so I'll get back to it. So now, the first thing is, you need to be able to know what your HIV status is. The second thing is that there are things that you can do within a marriage to make sure that the risk factors of transmission are low or zero. One of them is that you use barrier methods. So you use a condom, either a male or a female condom, for your sexual activity. Or you do a sexual activity that has low risk or no risk of transmission. For instance, mutual masturbation. If you have mutual masturbation, then there is no penetration and the risk of HIV transmission is zero. If the person who is positive is taking medication and their HIV, their viral load drops to undetectable, then we know undetectable equals untransmissible. Again, no risk of transmission. So all of these are things that can be done within a marriage in a discordant couple to make sure that the one person doesn't make the other person vulnerable to HIV. In addition to that, at various viral load levels, the risk of transmission is either higher or lower. So the lower your viral load is, the lower the risk of transmission. And if a person has been living with HIV for 1 or 2 years, usually their viral load is being well contained by their own immune system. Then the risk of transmission is only 1 in 100 to 1 in 10,000. So even though there is a risk, the risk is relatively low. Another thing that you can do is within your marriage, make sure that you have foreplay. What is foreplay? Foreplay is that which you do before you would have penetrative sex. So, process of foreplay, both the man and the woman's bodies are prepared. The man gets an erection, and the woman, if her body is properly prepared, releases body fluids in her vagina, so there's lubrication. And when there is lubrication, there is a lower risk of the tearing of the inside of the vagina, therefore much lower risk of transmission. Okay? First question answered. Yes or no? You happy? Somewhat. Which part of it are you not happy with?
Because I was thinking, before they are going to test, I assume maybe one is HIV and AIDS, but other not. So
You can't have HIV and AIDS.
HIV is, one has HIV, but another one not. Before testing, and they have sex without knowing that one is affected. So how is it come? The one is not affected.
Well, I told you the level of the virus.
Yes.
Okay. The level of the virus. That would affect it. Okay. And maybe they're having very good sex. Maybe they're having good foreplay, and therefore there's always good lubrication, and therefore there's much lower than risk of transmission. Having good foreplay for your sex is one of the safer practices. It reduces the risk of transmission. So when you are married, don't just say the woman has to say, lie back and think of it. No. No. You have to engage. I live in Sweden now. In Sweden, in winter, it always falls below 0 degrees. Not only at night, but during the day. And so if your car is parked outside, and you try and start your car in winter, there's just one thing you can guarantee. You're going to break your engine. Because the oil freezes, everything freezes. So if you start your car without warming the engine, you're going to break the car. So if you want to drive, you have to plug your car in. And when you plug the car in, it starts heating your engine. And as you start heating the engine, you heat up also the oil in the engine. So that when you turn your key, the car starts without braking. So our bodies are like cars in Sweden. If you don't heat them up, huh?
Yeah. May I add something?
Yes,
to what
please.
She is asking. Of course, the point here with lubrication, the point with when they have foreplay, at least the lubrication there. When having lubrication, there will not be friction. With friction,
Yes.
one is torn the skin and the blood is coming out. The blood of the one infected contact with the one who is not infected. And blood is the high risk, as we have already
Very high
spoken. So that is the whole point. But there is another thing of having sexual transmitted diseases. When one has that, also when having sexual intercourse, then there is high risk of contaminating, getting HIV because of the blood, which is the high risk, and the friction which is there. That's why it is asked and it is always safe to use condom when one has sexually transmitted diseases or treat them. And also the issue of having foreplay to make the lubrication there to avoid what?
The friction.
The friction.
In South Africa, one of the things that men were asking for is dry sex. Does that happen here? So men were asking women to dry their vaginas. And sometimes with herbs, sometimes with lemon juice, sometimes with things like that. So the vagina was dry, so there would be friction, so the man can enjoy the sex more. It's extremely high risk because of the friction. Because of the friction. So, with HIV, there's always the need of an entry point. here in front of me, there's a bucket of blood of a person living with HIV. And I put my hand into the bucket of blood. Even though blood is a high risk body fluid, if there are no cuts or wounds on my hand, there's no transmission. No transmission. Okay. Your second question was, how long can you live with ARVs? What do you think? Anyone? 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? What do you think?
I think it depends on your diet.
It depends on your diet. Okay? Anyone else? So, what are the limits then? Lower and higher? No limit. Okay. What do you think? I've been living with HIV for 18 years. And I've been taking my medication for 18 years. I can't say I've been living with it for HIV 18 years. I tested 18 years ago, so I don't know how long I've had it. But 18 years ago, I tested it for 18 years. I've been taking treatment. But you can see I'm dying. Yes? I look very sick. You sure? So you see, you can live with it for a very, very long time. They say today that if we take treatment as we're supposed to, then there is no upper limit of how long we can live with HIV. When I die, and I will die, just like you will, we will all die, right? But it won't be HIV that kills me. I hope that at 104, I might just fade away in my sleep. It's the kind of death I hope for. But it won't be HIV. Any questions on that? Okay. Why isn't there a cure? HIV is a complex virus. And we have actually found a way of curing HIV. There is a person who we call the person in the Berlin case or trial who was cured of HIV. But it involved a bone marrow transplant from a person with a very rare genetic condition before that person experienced a cure. Now we don't know whether we say he's in remission or whether he's cured, because it's been a period of about 10 years now, and in 10 years he hasn't taken any ARVs, and they can't measure any virus in his body. But the problem is that the process of finding a donor with a bone marrow and the cost of the bone marrow transplant is so high that it's not a cure that is available for everybody living with HIV. And so at this stage, even though we have the science, we don't have the money. And we don't have the availability of things like all the bone marrow and things like that. So we are working on it. Are we there yet? No, not yet. But today already we know that there are more than 18 different types of ARVs. And you use them in combination of 3. So there's no reason why any person ever needs to run out of ARVs if they need them. If they need them. So you should be able to live a normal lifespan. Problem is, of the 18 drugs that we know are available for HIV at the moment, only 5 or 6 are available in Tanzania. And that is also an aspect of the cost. And it's an aspect of patents, and it's an aspect of trade agreements, and all this political nonsense that gets in the way. So we cannot just say we want universal access to treatment, we must have equal access to treatment. Because where I'm living in Sweden now, all that medication is available. So if it's not all available here, questions? Yes.
If someone has HIV or somebody has it already, why did you test the person with HIV? Or what is it they could see it in?
It's a very difficult question to answer. It's a really difficult question to answer. You know, if you ask any person living with HIV, where did you get it? It's a really difficult question to answer because there isn't suddenly a bell that rings at the moment that you get HIV. Huh? When you get flu, do you know exactly where you got it? It's a virus. HIV is a virus. So I spoke to you about the ways in which HIV can be transmitted when I asked you your 10 questions of vulnerability, right? So, we have cases, for instance, and that's one of the problems with the ABC. We have cases of someone who is a virgin when they get married, they are faithful to their partner, and yet they are living with HIV. How is that possible? Because ABC is not a foolproof means. Number one, you might be a virgin but be HIV positive. It's possible. It's possible. You could have been born with HIV, you could have got HIV through an operation, you could have got it through a blood transfusion, you could have got it through an injection, you could have got it when you were injecting drugs. All of these are ways that you can get HIV which don't involve sex at all. So being a virgin does not prevent you from having HIV. It doesn't. The only way whether you know you are HIV positive or not is by testing. Secondly, if you go into a marriage with a person who does not know their HIV status, we know 47% of the cases of people infected with HIV are people who get infected in marriage. So where did it come from? I don't know. But that's the wrong question. The right question is, what are you doing about it? If you're HIV positive, are you taking treatment? If you're taking treatment, we know that undetectable equals untransmittable. So then you can say, as I do, HIV stops here. There'll never be a day or a person who says they got HIV from me. That we can say. Questions? Any further? Okay. Then I will hand back to Dr. Angela and say thank you very much for giving me the time.
Yeah, thank you very much for this informative information. And especially the 3, the 5, you have done this. And I was a bit surprised seeing you ask a very simple question which you have done in the classroom, but we are not sure. But thank you for making it very concrete. And one message you have to come out with is the one saying, check, test. Test means you go to check. You test if you're infected or not. If infected, there is good news. If not, there is good news too. So it's not like when you're infected, then it's the end of life. Life continues. We have heard the witness from you, living many years with the treatment and still healthy. So we can say AIDS, we can live healthy, we can live long life even if we are infected with HIV. But the important thing is to go for tests, to go for checkup. And that is not the message for them, it's our message. Because always we think HIV is a disease, is a virus of another people. She has, not me. But we have to take care because even what he has also tell us is that even you can get HIV not through sexual intercourse. Majority of us, we are stigmatizing people because of the issue related HIV and what? somebody to take care of the wounds, things like that. So those ones one can get the disease, the virus. So the important thing is to live or to keep on, to have this tradition of going for tests. And tests, you can do it anonymously without even mentioning your name. There are places whereby one can go and make a test. And usually, test goes together with the counseling. Pre-counseling and post-counseling, both you are getting the information about HIV and AIDS. And we as pastors, we as theologians, we as leaders of the church, we have to encourage our members, our people, to go for tests. And after that, one can live long, healthy life with HIV. Or one can live long, healthy life without HIV. So both ways, nobody should avoid. And HIV is not, as we are saying, we have heard, is not punishment. It's not punishment of God. It's not curse. It's a disease like any other disease, or it's a virus like any other virus. And good news is that one we can live with it healthy. And that is, now I want to say thank you very much. And we welcome you once again to Makumira, welcome back to Tanzania. And we will be eager to hear more information if you have, or you have get new information on HIV, we'll be eager to learn more from you. And for that, let us do our tradition, claps to him. Thank you very much, and welcome again to Makumira.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, he has given me a book, and this book will be in the library. I think you can say a bit more about this so that.
So just let me share with you that every 3 years in Sweden, they have something that is called the Uppsala Festival of Theology. And at the Uppsala Festival of Theology, there are theologians and lay people from around the country and around the world that gather in Uppsala to discuss various things from a theological perspective. And a number of years ago, we had a theological festival that was entitled, Behold, I Make All Things New. And one of the streams of discussion in that festival was human dignity and human sexuality, how these two relate. So we commissioned 3 papers that examined human dignity and human sexuality from a Judaic, Christian, and Muslim perspective, the 3 Abrahamic faiths. And we put those together in this book, which is what do the sacred texts of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam really say in regard to human sexuality. This is the first of 3 books in a series, and I can present you with this one, and I promise you we will present the others as well. The second one is I Am Divine, So Are You, which speaks about the karmic faiths, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism. But right now, it's with joy that I give you that book for your library.
Thank you very much.
So, and just let me show you too, what I've spoken about today is in this, it's the Save Toolkit. And if I just give you a website, www.inarella.org. If you go to this website, you will find the toolkit is there in soft copy, and we can make them available in hard copy once people have been trained on the material. Okay?
Yes. But there we can download it, or we can just.
You can download it.
Okay.
It's downloadable. You'll see then across it says
We don't need
copyright,
any password or
all of that.
whatsoever.
No, there's no password necessary. You just go to here and you look for materials, and once you look for materials, you will will find the Save Toolkit. Huh? I think I need to do an energizer with you before I leave. Huh?
Please.
Can I do an energizer with you? Okay, will you stand? In my culture, and I know in your culture, someone cannot come to your house and leave without having something to eat. Am I right? Yes, absolutely. Now, usually, you won't have time to cook a full meal. Sometimes you can, but not always. But at least you can give someone a fruit salad, right? And so all you need is some fruit and to put it together. So we say we do it like this. You need a watermelon. You need watermelon. And then you need a papaya. Papaya. And then I learned this from people in India. So they said the other fruit you need was a chico. And they up in trees almost like mangoes. So you have to pick them. Chico, chico, chico. And then you have to mix it. Fruit salad. Okay, so we need watermelon, watermelon, papaya, papaya, chico, 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 fruit salad, fruit salad.